Oh hey, future me here. Just so you guys know, this video is totally experimental and in no way has any reflection on how I actually run my Unraid server, at least for now. Anyway, enjoy. Today we're going to do something a little dumb, but it should be a fun experiment to do anyway, even though it probably won't work out like we hope, but it'd be fun to see in actual practice for once. And what that is we're going to have an all NVMe drive array for our Unraid server. Now the key item among you already probably recognize my PNAS sitting here on the desk, and this is primarily where I handle all my STDs. And the way that we're going to accomplish this today is with all the stuff that you can probably see on this desk. So the most important thing here is the ASUS expansion card. This will allow us to put all 4 NVMe drives on this card and then into our 16-lane PCIe slot. Now for fun, we're going to add a 10 gig NIC. I don't know if I'm going to go with Intel or a Quanta, I don't know how to say that, or Action. But we're going to probably use the Intel one, to be honest. It is dual port, not that it matters because I only have 4 ports available, and actually only 1 port. That's the point. And then we're going to throw in the Quadro because originally I was playing around with some remote streaming setup there, which you can pretty much find out everything you know about this in the previous videos, but that's all going to change today because of the new setup. So the first thing we need to do is actually wipe Unraid off this USB, and we're going to do a brand new clean install. Now I could just clear the config and do all this other stuff from the previous drives, but I'd rather just delete it and reinstall it. So let's go do that real quick, and then we'll get to putting the hardware in. Okay, so after the failed attempt to get the installer to work on Mac, we're going to just do it for Windows. Thankfully, my gaming computer is here to save the day, and we already have the license on the Mac because I transferred that over, so I'm not worried about actually losing anything. So let's kick this off. Yes. All right, let's try this again. So we're going to go for a stable release. We're going to customize this so we can have the name PNAS again, and in case you're wondering, PNAS does stand for Project Network Attached Storage. 681. All right, and I'm going to fill this out, and then we will, I guess, cut back to the hardware part. All right, while Unraid takes its sweet time extracting, we'll just go ahead and prepare our ASUS card with all of the hardware it needs. And I've talked about this card a lot in the past, so if you're curious at all, I'll leave a link in the video description about this card and how I'm using it, or used to use it specifically. But in this case, I've pretty much already told you everything you need to know, minus 1 point. And that point is, for something like this to work, your motherboard will have to support something called bifurcation. And what that basically means is that if you have a 16-lane PCIe slot, that slot can be divided into 8x8 or 4x4, or 4x4x4x4. So that's all bifurcation really means. There's nothing really too technical about it that we really care to know or need to know beyond that. All right, so let's get all of our drives added. Uh-oh, looks like I'm missing some screws. Oh boy, I have no idea where those could be. Okay, I found the little screws. Thankfully, they were all conveniently located. And now we're just going to insert all of our NVMe drives. These are 4 1 terabyte NVMe drives that I pilfered from the internet forever ago, actually Craigslist forever ago. They were pulled evidently from working systems, probably some workstation somewhere, and now I have them. I got these very cheap, only $50 each, believe it or not. All right. That is that. So since we already have this open, I guess we could talk about this a little bit. This is a giant aluminum, I don't know, heat spreader. I don't want to call it a heat sink, but I think it technically is a heat sink since it has these thermal pads. Obviously I've damaged one. I could replace this, but I'm not going to. But now we just got to put this bad boy on there. It does have a fan, by the way, and the fan is kind of loud and noisy. And also, I don't think it's very good. But at least they included one. Now, what's nice about the ASUS card is it's pretty affordable. There are alternative options out there from the likes of Dell, HP, Gigabyte, and other brands. So if you don't want to buy ASUS for whatever reason, you do have the option to go on to other brands. Now, if you are curious at all to know which motherboard I am using the ASRock EP2C602-4L-D16. This is a pretty sweet Intel motherboard, and I am sporting dual 2690s on this thing, which is amazing. And this bottom slot here is the slot that is capable of doing bifurcation according to the manual of this motherboard. So that is where we're putting the ASUS card, and then we'll basically just fill in the rest of the slots as needed or wherever. One thing that is interesting about this board is that PCI slot 1 is actually right here, 2, 3, 4, 5, and finally 6. And they start in a different order, so I believe this one actually is not a full 16 lane. It may be a 4, and then this is 16, 16, and this one is PCI Gen 2, I believe, and it may be a 4 lane as well. So in order to maximize our capability here, and also split up some of the cards so they're not gonna take up too much air. Not that I'm worried about them overheating or anything, but I'd rather give them as much space as possible or room to breathe. So we're going to be sticking the graphics card in this 16 lane right here. If I can ever get this bracket removed. There we go. And now they'll have a little bit of breathing room to themselves. Wow, did I not? Oh no, I did that right. And then we'll put in the 10 gig card in this slot right here that you probably can't see because it is now being blocked by the other cards. But you can just take my word for it, right? And just to give you guys an overview, this is really for your new people. This is an EVGA 750 watt power supply. We have the dual Xeons in here with 128 gigabytes of ECC memory. Our Intel 10 gig NIC, I don't remember the model, X520 I believe. This Quadro P2000, and then of course the ASUS card that we've been talking about for the last half an hour. And that's really it. Oh, and there's also hard drives in here from the previous array. We're just going to leave them in here. We're not going to use them, or we might use them. I don't know, but we probably don't use them in the actual NVMe array. And let's get this hooked in real quick if I can. I'm not really good at finding the holes, as you guys may have observed or experienced in your unfortunate lives. There we go. Okay, we just reset it again. We have graphics plugged in. It's going through the postcode. Let's go ahead and get this thing networked as well, since we are back here. Numlock is active. Still not getting any video. Come on. Okay, I think I did it that time. Numlock came on right as I said it wasn't working. Come on. Is this thing broken now? No, okay. Woo. Alright, so we're in the BIOS finally. Let's just go ahead and make sure everything is... Oh, I can't change anything in here apparently. Let's go ahead and make sure that everything that we may need is set up. I don't even know what I'm looking for. Okay, so it was on Northbridge. Alright, but looks like we already have it configured. So PCI 2, 4x4x4. And just to, I don't know if you guys can see it very well, but I have the options in here to say, hey, how do you want to bifurcate? Bifurcate's a fancy word for saying divide. Do I want to do by 8x8? I can even do by 8 by 4 by 4, which is really cool. And then of course by 4 by 4 by 8, which is in my mind the same thing, but they may make a difference. I have no idea what that would be. But we are specifically looking for by 4 by 4 by 4 by 4 because we have 4 NVMe devices. So that's good. I think we'll just skip ahead to the part where we're in Unraid because you guys don't really need to see more, I don't believe. Alright, so we are now ready to assign our devices. Now this is going to be an NVMe only array. That means no cache, so we don't want dual parity. So yeah, no cache, no NVMe cache, just straight up 100% NVMe array. and let's see how that ends up working out. Yeah, let's go ahead and start this thing, and we should be pretty much good to go from here. Looks like it's trying to do a parity rebuild or build, not really sure, but we're just going to go ahead and format the drives that are unformatted or not mountable right in the middle of that parity sync. I have no idea what it was trying to do in the first place, but well, it looks like that ended up working out. Array has one disk read error. Okay. Will I get a notification when it stops formatting? I haven't done this in a really long time, so I don't know what actually happens. Okay, well, the format was successful, and it looks like it's still doing the parity sync / data rebuild. I'm not sure what it's rebuilding, but what's actually really cool about this is that it's only going to take about 2 hours, or 3 hours now. But the estimated speed is actually pretty slow. It's still about the same as if you had hard drives in your array and were doing regular parity sync with a hard drive, you know, between 45 and 80 megabytes per second. That's not very good. So anyway, we're going to have to wait for this to finish before we can actually do any sort of tests. So I'll just cut back to when this is ready to start our first transfer, and that's really all we're going to do for testing. See you in 2 days, 1 hour, and 8 minutes. Unraid apparently finished up a little bit faster than I anticipated. It originally quoted us for 2 days, but it's been 14 hours and 30 minutes, and we only managed to scrape by with 2,720-ish errors. What those errors are, I have no idea. Check the log files, didn't see anything that stood out as errors to me, at least with the hard disk. But we're pretty much ready to continue on. So I'm going to get this thing powered off and cleaned because it's very dusty. And then we're going to bring it to the network rack, or not network, it's a server rack, sorry. And then we'll start some testing and kind of see what performance we get. So far, so good, maybe? All right, I already got the server rack, so now we're just going to get it powered on, and then everything should work as you would expect, or as we should expect. And the last component we need to do now that we got this hooked up to the 10 gig switch is obviously get a computer on the 10 gig switch as well. So let's go do that. Before we grab my laptop, let's talk about why I can't actually just plug in over here and get the full, I don't know, gig or 10 gigabit experience. And that's really because this outlet or this line is so long, so it's a Cat 6 line that goes all the way to the network closet, and it's not going to allow me to reach the full potential of 10 gigabit internet or Ethernet, whatever. So another part of the problem too is, so we have the Unify Flex Mini or whatever that thing's called in there. It's probably really hard to see because it's dark, and that's only 1 gigabit per second capable. So we're basically going to take our 10 gig adapter and my MacBook Pro over into the network closet and do our testing over there. Unfortunately, that's just the way things got to be for my particular setup until we get Cat 6A run all around the house. Okay, and then just quick overview what we got going on here. So like I mentioned earlier, the laptop is connected via Thunderbolt 3 to my 10 gig switch, and so we have one Unraid server connected here, and then the new, or not really the new one, but the PNAS is connected to this port right here. And we are pretty much ready to begin our test to see what kind of speeds we get with this NVMe array. Okay, so what we have here on this left window is a 24 gigabyte video that we're going to transfer over to the PNAS server. And we're going to observe what kind of speeds the NVMe array can do. So let's just go ahead and drag and drop that. And we are getting a whopping 2.52 megabits per second. Sometimes. Oh wait, sorry, that's the wrong side. We're getting... There we go. We're just now hitting 2 gigabit per second there for a second. Wow, this is all over the place. Not very consistent at all. 1.9 gigabits per second. That's pretty quick. 5.2 gigabits per second. Holy cow. I wish I had a better average than that, but this is pretty. 4.5 gigabits per second. That seems wrong. It's interesting that it shows, oh, that's our peak download. So our peak upload is 6.4 gigabits per second. Wow. Okay. Pretty cool. Now we're done. Okay, there we go. So we peaked at 6.7 gigabits per second. Doesn't look like it took very long. So from 11:10 to 11:12, so almost 2 minutes to transfer 24 gigabytes. That's not bad. Okay, let's go back to the lab and talk about this whole thing and I don't know, I guess analyze what may be going on here. All right, so I decided to test it a few more times off of camera, and it looks like the array is capable of hitting anywhere between 5.0 and 6.7-ish gigabits per second during transfers. And for an array, that's pretty good. That's, zero caching, straight to the array writes. You really can't complain with that, because typically with a standard array, let's say you have 7200 RPM drives in your array, and then you have, I don't know, just any SSD, you're probably going to see write speeds that are very quick at first, especially if you're using files that are larger than 24 gigabytes, probably, about 112 megabytes per second. And then it'll slowly decrease to anywhere in the neighborhood of anywhere between 54 megabytes per second to, I don't know, 65 megabytes per second tops. At least that's what I've seen in the past until I moved to 1 terabyte NVMe cache. And then that's when I saw 1 gigabit per second. You can check out videos for that in the description, but actually not in the description. It'll be a little clicky thingy on whatever side of me. So if you want to check that out. Now, so this video is not really done. Well, I guess this video is done, but there's going to be a part 2. And the reason why there's going to be part 2 is because we talked about trim in the past. Now, I didn't even show you guys how to check to see if trim is available in Unraid, and I probably really should have done that. But I think we're going to save that for the next video, so that way we have more content. Now, what's going to be in part 2? Part 2 is basically going to be, well, what happened with all of this? What is all this? What's the point of all this? Well, unfortunately, I can't just, show you guys, hey, it works, and, not show you the negative sides of potentially not supporting trim. I still don't know if those SSDs support trim, and the way that I plan to find out is basically by observing my performance over a long period of time. So I'm not sure how long we're talking about. It'll probably be a few months before we make the follow-up video, and that way I can kind of observe or get a feel for just how much the performance has degraded over time. Degraded over time. And, basically be like, hey, this is something that is totally feasible if your SSD supports trim, or hey, this is something that is totally not feasible if your SSDs support trim anyway, or don't support trim. It doesn't really matter. The point is that this whole thing really is hanging on trim. I think there are some manual tricks that we could do, but I'm not interested in that manual stuff. I'm solely interested in just does this work with Unraid by itself. So yeah, it'll probably be a few months before we get a part 2 to really figure out if this was even worth it. Well, it's going to be worth the time for me, but if this is something that would be worthwhile for people at home. And Unraid 6.9 is about to come out, which is pretty cool. So that means we could actually run 2 arrays. I may try that out on that system. So we'll have the all NVMe array and then just a standard array. But I have to upgrade my license because unfortunately I only am allowed 5 disks, 6 disks? I don't remember. Like 6 disks, I believe. But anyway, that's all besides the point. All right, so I hope you guys found this video interesting. We'll definitely do more testing later on in part 2. And, well, as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.